Welcome to Poetry 101. This is week 1, Introductory Poems. Most of the time I will be using actual poems, but because I want this to be easy to understand, we will not always be using poems written by poets. Sometimes we will be using lyrics written by artists. And that is what we will be doing today. There are plenty of good introductory poems from well-known poets, but I think the genre that actually does this best is musical theater. So today we'll be looking at 2 different songs from 2 different musicals, introducing a character and their beliefs, or characters and the setting of the story. Poem number 1, excerpts from Way Down Hadestown by Anais Mitchell. Hermes. On the road to hell there was a railroad track, and a train coming up from way down below. Better go get your suitcase packed. Guess it's time to go. Follow that dollar for a long way down, far away from the poorhouse door. You either get to hell or to Hadestown. Ain't no difference anymore. Hound dog howl and whistle blow. The train come a-rollin', clickety-clack. Everybody trying to get a ticket to go, but those who go, they don't come back. Persephone. Winter's nigh, and summer's o'er, hear that high and lonesome sound of my husband coming to bring me home to Hadestown. Fates. Mr. Hades is a mighty king, must be making mighty big deals. Seems like he owns everything. Eurydice. Kind of makes you wonder how it feels. I would like for you to take a minute to analyze this poem. There is a PDF link in the description below where you can find the printed version, or you can rewatch my reading of it and take notes alongside of what you think this poem is interpreted as and what you think is happening. I would encourage you to pause here if you are going to do one of those options, because I will now be going into my annotations of this song. Now, I'm going to be honest. I do know this song fairly well. I actually know it better than I even know the other one, though I know the story of both. I have seen both this musical, Hadestown, and the next musical, Anastasia, live, and I am fairly familiar with both of their soundtracks. So I personally know what's going on beyond that. But you don't have to know the musical to be well familiar with what is happening in this story, because it is based on Greek mythology, as you may have noticed from the name of some of our characters, as well as the title location, Hadestown. So with an understanding of that, you can interpret part of this poem based on the Greek mythology of it. Some of it you can interpret without that knowledge, and some you can interpret with the knowledge of the musical. I have all 3 in my head as I am reading. So let's get into what I have annotated on my page. Number 1, Hermes. Hermes was the messenger of the gods in Greek mythology. So we are starting with the messenger telling us the story and setting the scene. He gives us the most of this excerpt that I have, with 3 stanzas, which is what we call our paragraphs in poetry. All of his stanzas are describing the story, laying the scene, and setting up characters. And his first line, it says, on the road to hell there was a railroad track, and a train coming up from way down below. The words way down below tie back to the words to hell, telling us where the train is coming from. Although the words to hell imply that the train usually only goes in one direction, which means the fact that it's coming up, it means it's not just the everyman who is coming up, but it implies that there is someone of importance coming up. We will see who this is later in the poem. He then goes on to say, better go get your suitcase packed, guess it's time to go, implying that someone will be going down to Hadestown on the train. Later in his next stanza, he says, you either get to hell or to Hadestown, showing us that the train can go to 2 different locations, that they are not the same place. And he says there ain't no difference anymore, implying that there once was a difference between these 2 places, and that one of the places has since been degraded in order to come down to the level of the other place. In his next line, he says, hound dog howl. This is a reference to Greek mythology's Cerberus, the 3-headed dog who guards the gates of Hades. And whistle blow. The whistle is the whistle of the train. Train come rolling, clickety-clack. This clickety-clack, since they can now hear it, not just the train whistle itself, implies that the train is now getting closer and that the person on it is sooner to arriving, meaning that one of these characters is sooner to leaving. Everybody trying to get a ticket to go. This line is the one that establishes our scene the best. If you are not familiar with Hadestown, it takes place in a time of deep poverty. Because Persephone does not come as often to invoke spring or summer, there is not as much food for harvest, meaning there is not much food to eat, meaning more people are dying, meaning everything is pretty much desolate. So everybody trying to get a ticket to go in this line is a reference to how the people are in poor shape, and in their eyes, death and living in Hadestown would be better than living on the surface world above because of how bad things have gotten. The next line, however, brings us back to how dark this reality is, with the line, "Those who go don't come back. It is a one-way ticket and there is no way to cheat death." That is what we are told to believe. However, if you know the story of Hadestown or the story of Orpheus and Eurydice, you know that sometimes people do come back. We now switch to the perspective of Persephone, where she says, "Winter's nigh and summer's o'er." Nigh means coming soon. It is on the brink. It is almost there. The transition is almost complete. And o'er is an old-timey version of over, where you replace the V with an apostrophe. So now we know the setting of where we are. The winter is coming and the summer has ended. For those who know Greek mythology, you know that according to Greek mythology, summer would end when Persephone would leave. So now we know a little bit who is about to leave, because we know that it is about to be winter and that she can no longer stay. She says, "Hear that high and lonesome sound." This is again referring to the train and the sound of it. But to her, it is not a 4-year-old boy, we love trains, whoop whoop. To her, the sound is instead sad and aggravating almost. Then she says, "Of my husband coming for." So again, we know that she leaves at the end of summer, and if you did not know that information before reading, this is the line that reveals it, that her husband is coming for. And now her saying "my husband" implies that she is the wife of someone who lives in Hadestown, conceivably someone who is in charge of Hadestown, who would be Hades. And then she says, "To bring me home to Hadestown," revealing to the audience that she lives in the underworld and is not always above on the surface, which is where this poem takes place. Then the Fates come in. The Fates are all seeing, but in this 3 lines that they have, they actually only state things that are well known to their audience. Now, not to the audience of the reader or the musical, but in the musical, everyone is saying things sort of to each other. They're saying it to the audience, but they're stating things that we mostly know. So when the Fates come in, telling us things that we would assume based on everything else we have heard in lines on this page and also lines that are in the rest of the full version of the song, they kind of just state the obvious. So we start with Mr. Hades is a mighty king. He has a lot of power. Must be making mighty big deals. As you see in the course of the musical, Hades often makes deals with people in exchange for their souls. We see this with one of our main characters, Eurydice, who has become so hungry and desperate that she is willing to trade her soul in order just to not be starving anymore. This also helps us understand that he has a lot of power, and because people are willing to die to not have to deal with their suffering anymore, he has a lot of souls, meaning his workforce, his power, has become stronger. The Fates finish their little phrase with, "It seems like he owns everything," reinforcing that in a time where everyone is dying, it means he would be richer down below than they would be up above. We then have one line from our main character, Eurydice, who says, "Kind of makes you wonder how it feels." This shows that she is curious, but also that this curiosity is dangerous. It is also a type of foreshadowing for what will happen later in the musical when she sells her soul to Hades. This is her character introduction for this page. It kind of makes you wonder how it feels. The entire course of Hadestown can be shown on this page in the beginning. It shows you that he is the messenger. He cannot change the plot, but he can tell you how things are. That the Fates know what is going to happen and also know how things are, but again, are more there to warn you than they are to actually change the plot. Persephone seems like she is done with everything, that she is just fed up with the way that things are, and thus that is how her lines are written. Eurydice, however, is curious, and this curiosity is what moves the page forward. I will now read A Journey to the Past from the musical Anastasia, written by authors on the screen, whose names I do not have memorized. You can take notes as you read along, or you can print the backside page of Journey to the Past lyrics. This is actually the full song this time, so you're not missing any context clues. It reads, "Heart, don't fail me now. Courage, don't desert me. Don't turn back now that we're here. People always say life is full of choices. No one ever mentions fear, or how the world can seem so vast on a journey to the past. Somewhere down this road, I know someone's waiting. Years of dreams just can't be wrong. Arms will open wide. I will be safe and wanted, finally home where I belong. While starting now, I'm learning fast on this journey to the past. Home, love, family. There was once a time I must have had them too. Home, love, family. I will never be complete until I find you. One step at a time, one hope, then another. Who knows where this road may go? Back to who I was, on to find my future, things my heart still needs to know. Yes, let this be a sign, let this road be mine. Let it bring me to my past and bring me home at last." If you are annotating your own, aside from this is where you should pause. I will be going into my annotations. We learn a lot about our main character Anastasia through the song. Now, this song is not at the beginning of the musical. I think it is actually the end of Act 1. Nevertheless, it shows us a lot about her character that when watching the show or the movie, you may have already seen, but really encapsulates who she is very well. This poem tells us that Anastasia has heart and courage, but she's also scared and nervous. She opens with, "Heart, don't fail me now, courage, don't desert me," meaning that she has heart, she has courage, but she fears that she'll lose them because of how scary the unknown before her is. She says, "Don't turn back now that we're here," which is basically another way of saying, I've made it this far, but I want to go all the way. I want to make sure I make it to that end goal. She says that no one ever mentions fear, though they mention that life is full of choices. This shows how choices can often be scary, and she goes on to say how the world can seem so vast, which is also a lot of unknown, which is also scary. Despite the fact of how scary things are and how she is talking about how scary things are, this poem is not a poem of fear. It is a poem of hope. She says, "On her journey to the past." This is the line that shows us where she is wanting to go. It is not a physical destination, although she is actually traveling to a physical destination in the show. It shows that she is on the way to finding something, that finding that thing is her final destination. She says, "Somewhere down this road, I know someone's waiting." She doesn't know who that person is, hence why she doesn't say their name, but she knows that she once did know this person. Years of dreams can't be wrong. She's been waiting to find them, and she has put a lot of her purpose and destiny into finding these people. And now she is saying, there is no point in me of having those dreams if they're not going to become fulfilled. Now, this is not 100% a wise thought that she has, but it does work out for her. She says, "Arms will open wide, I'll be safe and wanted." This shows why this dream has meant so much to her. Later she says, "Well, starting now, I'm learning fast." She's learning how to find what she wants as she searches, and she is also learning more about herself and her ability to hope, have heart, and have courage as she does so. And the next stanza, she says, "Home, love, family," which reveals exactly what she is wanting from this journey. She says, "There once was a time I must have had them too." She knows that this must have been a part of her past, even if she can't remember it, and that is why she hopes so strongly and holds on to that dream with such vigor that she needs to have them again. She finishes the stanza with, "I will never be complete until I find you." She knows that something was taken from her. She knows that something is missing. And because everyone keeps telling her, well, maybe it will happen, she is continuing to believe in that dream. She continues with, "One step at a time, one hope, then another." She says, "I'm anxious to get there. I want to get there so badly, but I can't be focusing on that to get there." She says, "I have to focus on now. I have to look down and see my own feet and where they are and take one step at a time, one hope at a time, because if I hope too big, I might never get there. And if I try to run too fast, I may tire myself out." Her next 3 lines, "Who knows where this road may go? Back to who I was, on to find my future," restate how much unknown there certainly is in this story. She keeps going and she says, "Let this road be mine." She is unsure if this path that she is on is the right way to find the people she is looking for. However, she still holds on to that hope that is so vital to her character. In her last line, she says, "Let it lead me to my past and bring me home at last." This poem is full of a lot of hope. It shows that there is a lot of unknown around her, but how strong she is to continue to walk into that unknown and into that hope. I really like poems like this because I think poems that introduce someone well are hard to do. I've written a lot of poems about myself trying to be like, this is who I am, when in reality I don't think we can encapsulate the entirety of a person in one poem or even in one poetry book, which is why I like stories and poems like this. With Journey to the Past, it's very interesting to see, yes, she has fear, yes, she is this, she is this, she is this, but none of that matters as much as her hope matters. Her hope in the midst of fear is what encapsulates Anastasia as a character very well, and what this poem does a good job of saying. Way Down Hadestown is a good poem for setting a scene. I really like story poems, and I think to set a scene and set a story this well is amazing. And this song is like 7 minutes long, so the fact that this is what I took out and we still have a collective story shows how well this musical is written. There's more to this song. I would highly recommend listening to it or reading its lyrics on Genius Lyric, linked below. But I really like how the plot of the story is laid out. We see who Eurydice is as a character and what her motivations are and what they will bring the musical to in one line. while our other characters are introduced well with other lines. We learn about Hermes and his how observant he is, and how much he notices, and how much he sees the course of things happening, even though he's not seeing the future. He just knows. It's what things are, how they work, and what is happening right now in this time. We see Persephone, we see her cynicism, we see how she is almost blinded to the fact that there is hope out there. Now, the one thing that this printed version is missing is Orpheus. Orpheus is the hope of Hadestown. He is what drives everything together, and he is the thing that is holding the plot together instead of making it just an utter tragedy. But that is a story for another day. This has been Poetry Week 1, introductory poems. I would encourage you to take 10 minutes to write your own introductory poem. And if you end up sharing that, you can share it on Instagram for me to see, or if you are one of my students, put it in the Google Classroom. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm Abby A.C. Ham, and I will see you next week.